So I've had some wine barrel staves lying around for quite some time now, and I was really hesitant to tackle a project with it just because I had so little of it and I didn't want to waste any of the wood. Acquiring wine barrels can actually be really tricky. I found that the easiest way to acquire it would either be through your local Craigslist, or if you are like me and you are lucky enough to live close to wineries, you can always check in with the owner of the property to see if they have any types of barrels that are old or that they might not be using or that they might be willing to sell to you at a discount. Wine barrel wood can actually be really tricky to work with. Although it's oak, it's actually really easy to split just because of how old it is. Also, no two wine barrel staves are going to be the same even if they come from the same wine barrel. Ultimately, I decided to get my feet wet with a wine barrel project by building this really simple stool from the 8 staves that I had. So stick around for this episode and see how I built it, and hopefully I can give you some helpful tips along the way. Like I said before, if you've ever worked with wine staves or seen a barrel up close, you'll know it isn't uniform, which makes it all the more difficult to build something to an exact design. That makes cutting it to be perfectly even one of the more challenging things about working with material, but since I've never worked with it before, I tried to embrace it rather than let it hinder me from building my stool. Now I need to cut 4 different types of pieces for this build. First, I cut out 4 legs from 2 staves that were around 17 inches long. Next, I cut 4 pieces around 14 inches that would serve as my lower chair support. Third, I cut 2 pieces around 9 inches that would serve as upper support and bridge the gap between each set of my legs. Lastly, with the remaining staves I had, I cut, in my case, 7 slats around 14 inches long to serve as the chair portion of the build. Now you could go into a ton of sanding here after you make your cuts, but I chose not to because I wanted to preserve the weathered look of all of my wood, including the exterior worn down oak as well as the deep wine-soaked purple interior. I then began assembly. So I pre-drilled all of my holes before screwing anything together, and even in doing this I found that because the wood was so old, it was actually tough to avoid splitting it at certain times. I started by screwing together 2 legs and an upper support piece as such, and then I repeated that exact process for my second set of legs. Next, I screwed together my 4 lower support pieces with one set facing inwards and the other set facing outwards, just like you see here. Next, I could attach my 2 legs to the lower support that I just made, which wasn't too tough, but remember that because the wood is all different sizes, even if they are small differences, things won't be perfect. But building the stool in this order allowed me to make sure that all 4 of my legs sat flush to the ground and my lower supports would be level and sturdy. Last up, I could take my final set of staves and make my seat cover. I laid them out in an order that created the most uniform looking seat, with all of the purple sides facing upwards. Then I marked out and pre-drilled all of my holes again and lined up one side square and attached everything using more wood screws. Once that was done, I used my circular saw and squared up the other side of the chair, followed by light sanding at 120 grit just to break some of those sharper edges. You wouldn't want a splinter getting in your butt. And with that done, the stool was done. There's no need for a finish on this, the wood looks amazing as is, and I want to preserve the beauty of it as much as possible. Of course, you can sand things down further if you want, you can round over the edges more, or modify this design to whatever type of materials that you have lying around. But I like my stool as it is for now, and I'm happy with how the project came together. And I like that I was able to do this using a very minimal amount of tools. And I definitely look forward to working with the material on a more advanced level down the road. With that said, until next time, thank you so much for watching.